back to Empowerment Radio. We are talking about women and anxiety. And as I mentioned before, anxiety is not only an issue, like an epidemic issue in our society, it is especially affecting women in a 2-to-1 ratio. And the question many people have been asking themselves, why? Why is it that women seem to suffer more from anxiety than men? And there are, of course, many theories about it. Maybe women are just more in touch with their emotions. Maybe they're more likely to admit that they need help or that they have an issue. There's some neurological data that suggests that there is a part of the brain, the insula, that is connected to empathy. Now, I thought this was pretty interesting, that this part is basically mimicking what other people are feeling that we are talking to. So women are observing someone in pain or someone who's struggling or is anxious, and their insula, this part of the brain, is pretty much activated, is lighting up. But in contrast to men, it stays lit up. So women are able to really relate for a longer time to other people's stories and their troubles and their struggles, whereas men are quickly turning their insula off and going to other parts of the brain that are more about problem solving. And how many times have we heard as men from our partners that they just want to be listened to and not to be told what to do or how to fix the issue? And I think that's, one explanation of why potentially women are just feeling more anxious, because they may feel and entrain more to the anxiety of others, and they may also feel easily overwhelmed by what is going on around them, simply because there is, again, this stronger empathetic component. And then there is the fact that men seem to be better in compartmentalizing than women, which is connected to what I just said, that men just can shove an issue aside and focus on something else, whereas women often keep the bigger picture and try to keep tabs on everything, and at times also just get stressed and overwhelmed. Now, I personally don't like generalizing, because I think it's just too easy to simply make a judgment and a deduction and say this is how it is, and then put a subject or a group of people into a little box and tuck them nicely away in our opinions. I think it's more important to be open and see, well, maybe we all have an aspect of a feminine and a masculine inside of us, and maybe every person is anyhow very unique and therefore needs to be also seen and addressed in that unique way. And I also think the more important question, since anxiety is not a competition, who does it more, who does it less, who does it better, who does it worse, anxiety is actually really a challenge. It's a struggle. And I think the bigger question we have to ask ourselves is, why? Why are more and more women anxious? And I want to focus on women today, because I believe there are reasons why women are anxious that are particular to women, and they need to be addressed, and they need to not be forgotten. And I think men and women together need to start resolving this anxiety epidemic among women. Now, I want to ask you, the listener, to just send us a text through the chat box on Transformation Talk Radio website, or call in the number, which I always have not ready. What is it again, Justin? Give us a number.
The call number is 888-418-6890.
Say it again, please.
Absolutely. 1-888-418-6890.
Wonderful. Thanks, Justin. Justin is our producer. And so if you can just call in and tell us your opinion. Why do you believe women are more anxious? Why are you maybe more anxious? And if you have any insights or also maybe solutions, let us know. We would love to hear from you. Now, there is no way to talk about women and anxiety without also looking at the history of suppression of women. Now, some people, some historians say that history started with the invention of the plow, which I think is quite interesting. Apparently, once the plow was invented, men had some kind of a dominance, because they were able to produce more, were able then to have more to also share on the market and to barter for. And so that created this sense of I'm in charge, not because men were smarter or wiser or anything like this, but because they had more upper body strength. Now, that may be one explanation, but there are certainly also explanations that can be found in religion. And when you're just looking at the women being depicted as the original sinner, or I just read the Bible phrase that says that women are supposed to be quiet in church and not to speak up. I mean, there was an ongoing suppression of women that has been occurring since hundreds and hundreds of years. And even though that has on some level changed, and for example, the right to vote is almost 100 years old now, certain things haven't changed. When you look into the inequality of salary, when you look into the inequality of representation in management, in politics, in that regard, it's still a man's world. And it's still the men that are dominating the women, and the women that are often just forced to take less, or forced to be quiet, or forced to somehow basically shut up and keep up. And that is something that I believe creates a lot of anxiety and a lot of struggle inside. Now, even more seriously is that this suppression, this, some people call it the war on women, has also created a violence, a history of violence against women. And when I did some research on the program, I was frankly shocked about the percentages of worldwide violence against women, which I wasn't that aware of. An estimated 35% of women worldwide have experienced either physical or sexual violence at some point in their life. And some studies say that in some countries this number goes up to 70% of women. It's estimated that of all the women who were victims of homicide globally, this was in 2012, almost half of them were killed by either their intimate partners or by family members. And this is compared to about 6% in men at the same year. 1 in 10 women has reported to have been cyber bullied, cyber harassed, and especially in a sexual, unwanted, explicit way. And this is especially young women that are victims of that cyberbullying. And then there are, of course, other topics and other horrible things that are occurring in the world, like sex trafficking, female genital mutilation, child brides. All of those things are just showing that worldwide, women and children, girls, are victims of horrendous, atrocious violence and suppression. And there is something we globally need to do by shedding a light on it, by becoming more aware of it. And I think it's interesting, and not to digress in politics, but it's interesting that it was acceptable for us to have a man being elected into as a president who is obviously not necessarily the most kind and respectful to women, in fact, who has been treating women very misogynously. This is just something that I personally feel we need to closer look at. What can we do as a society to stop this violence and this oppression of women, and therefore also alleviate some of the anxiety women have been dealing with for such a long time. Many of my clients tell me that it's not something people usually talk about, that as a woman living in a big city, there is a constant fear of going out, for example, at night, just in a dark alley, of not really knowing if it's safe, not really knowing when you go into the parking garage if someone going to attack you from behind. Women are vulnerable. Women are definitely more vulnerable than men, and therefore need to be also more protected, and protected in a way that they are respected, protected in a way that they are also looked after, and protected in a way that they are empowered. And all of those things we will talk more about after the break. So stay right tuned, and please call in if you have any comments, any insights, any suggestions on anxiety and women. We will be right back.